Hey everyone, it's Helen from S&P Deal Hunter. Today we have Marc Nzojibwami with us, an acquisition entrepreneur who bought a large format print and sign shop in Calgary, Canada. I'm very excited to hear Marc's story today. Marc, it's great to have you.
Thanks, Helen. Happy to be on the call and excited to share a little bit about my story and the whole experience.
Yeah, but look, Marc, let's first share a little bit about your background and sort of how you got into buying businesses.
Yeah, so my background, so I've got a business degree. I got it from Mount Royal University in Calgary. And my business degree focused in entrepreneurship and innovation. So I've always kind of had this entrepreneurial itch throughout university. And so in university, I actually started two businesses. One was a tech business called Student Hire that connected post-secondary students with people in the community who needed one-time odd jobs. And the other one was a business in the consumer packaged goods side of things. And so what we did is we made these health conscious snack bars to help nursing mothers replenish the nutrients they lose while breastfeeding. And so I learned a couple things during that whole process. One, starting a business from scratch is terribly difficult because both of those businesses failed. And then the other thing that I learned is that I just love business in general. As both businesses that I started were completely different businesses, one in the consumer packaged goods, one on the tech side. And I just love the process of business. And so I figured, what's the best way to kind of go through, what's the best way to kind of merge my love for business and not having to start a business from scratch. And so, anyways, I finished my undergrad. I went into software sales. So I worked in software sales on the marketing side and the cybersecurity side. And during this whole time, as I was kind of, going into my career, I remember being on a panel, listening to a panel discussion, and a entrepreneur said, "Hey, you know what? What I did is I bought a business instead of actually starting a business from scratch." And I thought that was interesting. And then I started digging, and I saw that, and talked to one of my friends and found out that he was doing that as well too. And he and his friends had bought, five businesses or so, and they were doing really well. And that kind of like triggered the thought process for me. And so, yeah, so that's kind of what, a little bit about my background and kind of what triggered my interest in acquisition entrepreneurship there.
Wow, that's very cool. And side note, I recently discovered that lactation cookies are a big thing. So
Yeah.
that's really funny.
Yeah,
That's
it's
great.
it's huge. Yep. Being a dad of two little kids and one on the way pretty soon here, I get it. It's I totally get it.
Yeah, I remember looking at like the search volume on like SEMrush. It was insane. I couldn't believe it. So I did not know to knows the entire category, but
Yeah.
no, that's awesome. I guess, were you looking for your first business when you were still working in software sales, or did you quit your job? Like, were you doing this part-time, full-time? What did that look like?
Yeah. So I graduated university in 2019, and and we bought our first business in September of 2021. And so my search for the first business happened while I was still working full time. And so what happened is there's me and two other partners, who we all had kind of the similar goal to want to acquire business, but not just acquire one business, but acquire many businesses and build a portfolio. And so we are all doing this full time. Sorry, we were all working full time, and we were searching for a business to acquire part-time. And so we came across one, and we acquired that business in September of 2021. And one of my partners quit his day job and went to go run that business on a full-time basis. And me and my other partner kept our full-time jobs and kept working. And the plan was that we would continue searching. And now with the second acquisition, I've actually been focusing a lot more of my time, and so I've been focusing much more of my time on the search, and so I've been dedicating a lot more time on that, and been kind of doing some side gigs on the side while searching full time, basically.
Wow, very, very exciting. And I guess, what were your roles like? You and your two partners, were you guys all just kind of searching? Were some of you more focused on the diligence piece? What did that look like?
Yeah. So my background is in sales. My other partner is a tax lawyer, and my other partner he's a finance background. And so, in terms of kind of responsibilities, a lot of my responsibilities was on the search side, which is because searching at the end of the day is almost kind of like a sales job. you're prospecting, you're in some cases making cold calls, building relationships. And so that was so a lot of the search was I focused a lot on the search, kind of making relationships with the brokers, business owners and stuff like that. Once we kind of got into finding businesses we liked, the part of preparing the LOI was, our friend, my partner who's a lawyer, was good on that side of things, and then kind of doing the financial due diligence. My partner who has a finance background, that was mainly his side of the responsibilities. And so yeah, so that's kind of how we kind of divvied up the responsibilities throughout the process. And then once we kind of had a business under LOI and we're going through the due diligence process, the finance obviously was on one side, reviewing the contracts and the legal was on the lawyer side, and then, reviewing relationships with customers, that's something that I could take on as well too on that front there.
Got it. No, that makes sense. And where were you guys sourcing deals? Like, how did you come across the business you did end up buying? And, how many deals did you look at for them?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the search is the hardest part, honestly, in my opinion.
It's grueling.
It really is. Like when I say that it's like a sales job, it really is. You're prospecting. But the one thing I will say is that if you are cold calling business owners, it is a much easier conversation to have rather than, every business owner is willing to hear how much somebody is willing to pay for their business, and having kind of entertain that conversation is kind of a little stroke to their ego of sorts. And so that first conversation, although it is intimidating and scary to have, I have found that most business owners are pretty open to having that conversation. But sorry, back to your question of how do we source deals? And so the way I source deals, there are quite a few ways. One was business brokers. And so just a classic Google search of business brokers in Calgary, Canada. Just doing that. That's one way I found business brokers. I would call them up, let them know who I was. I'd even send them a little bit of a slide deck as well too, just to kind of make us look a little bit more professional. I'd also go on online listings as well, because online listings often have connections. If you go to an online listing, you'll often see that those listings are associated to a broker as well too. And so once you kind of request information on an online listing, you now have that relationship with that broker. And so that's one thing that I've learned in some online forms and other online platforms. It's just kind of just the platform itself is the broker, if you want to look at it that way. So that was one way. Another way is I did some cold calling, just calling business owners directly, just letting them know what I was doing. I also reached out to accounting firms. I got connected to some mid-sized accounting firms like BDO, Grant Thornton, MNP, but also some smaller local accounting firms as well too. Law firms can reach out to law firms as well too. And banks as well. Talked to some bankers, letting them know who we were as well. And then the short of it is, every person I spoke to, I told them that I was looking to buy a business. And so I just wanted people to know that that's who I was and that's what I was doing. And I found that kind of helped a lot as well too.
No, that's smart. Out of all those channels, where did you sort of source, where did you see the best deal flow, or whether it's quality or quantity?
Yeah. Um, I'd say brokers, to be honest.
Yeah.
And just because that's their job. It's their job to source deals. I find one of the challenges of sourcing a deal cold is that there's a lot of legwork that needs to happen before the deal actually closes, right? And so it's nice that the broker kind of handles a lot of that initial legwork, and so you're at a position of, we can actually start talking about, multiples and all of these things, right? And so I found brokers, and so I had to, I have like a list of like 15 or 20 brokers that I regularly reach out to make sure that they know that I'm still around, still looking for a business to buy. So yeah, I'd say brokers. And then also I've been a lot more public on LinkedIn as well too about my search for business. And so I've seen people kind of reaching out to me, just saying, "Hey, I know such and such a person as well too." And I've noticed that's been quite helpful as well.
That's super smart. I feel like not enough people just, post something like that on LinkedIn. You never know who's gonna see it. You never know who knows somebody who has a business for sale.
Yeah.
That's really
I,
smart.
I
When you
I just will say I will admit that posting on LinkedIn was a challenge just because for up until recently I still have my full-time job, and so I didn't
Mhm.
want my employer to think like, hey, wait a minute, like what are you actually doing? Are you doing my working for the company or for and I could see how that could be a challenge as well too.
No, that makes sense. I didn't think of that even since, I obviously do this full time. No, that makes a lot of sense. I'm guess I'm curious, when you were cold calling business owners, what did you say to them to get, were you telling them you just wanted to buy their business? Like, what was your script?
Yeah. Yeah, it was very simple. It was just something along the lines of like, hey, my name is Mark. I know this is a complete, or I would say, yeah, my name is Mark. Um, we don't know each other, and I know this is coming out of the blue, but just to give you a brief introduction, I'm part of a small group of entrepreneurs looking to buy a business. And I saw your business, and I thought it would be a great it'd be great to just talk to you about your business and learn more about it. And I just left it at that. And people often were caught off guard, and they would often chuckle, and they'd be like, "Oh, okay, sure," just catch them out of nowhere and stuff like that. And so, for the most part, that was that worked out pretty well for me.
No, that's smart. And was the idea that they were just, if they wanted to continue the conversation, they were kind of interested in selling, or, were you just kind of learning more about the business? How did that work?
Yeah, after that, they would often ask a question like, "Well, how'd you hear about me?" or why my business and stuff, right? And so I had to be prepared to answer those questions of like why my business, because when I first started, I just called businesses randomly without putting a lot of thought into why that business, and that was always kind of like an awkward conversation. And so once I kind of had that conversation, just to actually show them that I've actually put thought into their business, that would typically lead to like, oh, okay, sure. And then we talk maybe 15 or so minutes just about their history, about their business. Everybody loves talking about their business because it's their baby, right?
Yep.
And so it's not very hard to get somebody to talk about their business. And then from there, it'd be like, hey, you know, can I just buy you a coffee? And can we just and then from there they'd be pretty open to that as well too. And I will say, having bought a business now, it's a lot easier having those conversations when I tell people like, "Hey, I've already bought a business," instead of telling them from that I've never bought a business as well too. And so that's something that's helpful as well.
No, 100%. I had the same experience. It's so much easier to buy your second business than it is your very first one, where you're coming in sort of not already being a business owner and operator. There's just that level of like kind of like camaraderie, if you will, almost.
Yeah. And not only on the business side as well too, but just on the broker side, every broker's worst nightmare is that a deal dies at the last minute. And so if you can show the broker that you have already closed a deal or have the know-how on how to close a deal, it goes a long ways in building that trust for the broker, because most brokers only get paid on commission, right? And so they don't get, only get paid if the deal closes.
Totally, totally. What I guess, the first business you bought, what kind of deals were you looking what were you looking for in the business? Did you know you wanted to, buy a print shop? Did you know that or were you just looking for certain were you did you have a pretty broad search criteria? What did that look like?
Yeah. I never thought we'd buy a large format print and sign shop, honestly. And so the way we started is we said we're agnostic in our search. We want to keep it wide. But we, with that being said, we did put some barriers, I guess some criterias, I guess, to help us kind of narrow our search in some shape or form. The reason why we wanted to be agnostic is because it was our first time buying, and we just don't know what we don't know. And so we just want to look at everything, and who knows, maybe there's an industry we end up falling in love with, and then we decide to narrow in on that one industry. But until that point, we just didn't know anything, so we kept it broad. We narrowed it down to an EBITDA range as well too. For this first purchase, me and my partners were relatively early on in our careers, and so we didn't want to have a massive EBITDA range. We wanted to keep it somewhere where we can kind of take a bite out of, make the deal happen without bringing in any other investors, just on our own. And so we kept it within a range that we could get that done as well too. We didn't want a business that had an easy, where you can, a low barrier of entry. And so basically what we mean by that is that, if we were to buy a landscape business and that does residential lawn care, we didn't want the neighborhood kid to come and steal our business, right? So we wanted to have not crazy barrier to entries, but relatively some barrier of entry that doesn't make it easy for somebody to just wake up one morning and just steal the market share. We wanted businesses that have been around for a while. We have a preference to businesses where owners are looking to retire. And so, our print shop had been around for 40 years. And so we figured the longer the business has been around, the higher likelihood of it continuing for a long period of time. And so that was something we looked for as well too. And then we looked for a business that wasn't too owner dependent. During our search, we saw some businesses where the owner was literally doing everything. And if the owner blinked for too long, the business would fall apart, right? And so with this business that we acquired, the owner had built a good team, some good processes. She was on vacation 3 months out of the year, and that was kind of a nice plus for us. And so those were kind of the things we were looking at and considering during our search.
And what kind of deals were you did you seriously pursue, or was this the first one that you seriously pursued?
We looked at a lot of, so let's see, for the first deal here, our first deal, we put an LOI. I'm trying to think how many LOIs we put on. We submitted, I think, 2 or 3 LOIs before we got to the first acquisition we made. And so, we looked at, man, that's so long ago. We looked at so many different things. We looked at a registry. We looked at a pizza business. We looked at a company that does like a rock wall or bouldering company, right? We looked at that. That was the first search. Now and since now, with the second search, we've looked at a custom door and window manufacturer. We've looked at a business that sells saunas. We've looked at other print shops. We've looked at an electric motor repair shop. We've looked at a pizza franchisor. We've looked at so many different things that we've looked at. And so yeah, honestly, we look at almost anything.
No, I love that. And side note, I'm looking for a sauna. So if you do end up buying that business, I'm
Yeah.
expecting a deal.
Okay.
Um,
Deal.
with the first deal, you said you submitted 2 to 3 LOIs. Did you get them under LOI? Did you lose out on those bids until the very, the final one, the print shop one, or what did that look like?
Yeah, so the other ones we submitted those LOIs and then weren't submitted. There were other parties involved and we weren't picked. With ABL Imaging, that's the business we bought. That was the first one where we submitted an LOI and our LOI was accepted. And then we kind of went into the next phases of due diligence. And so our first acceptance of LOI was the business we ended up acquiring at the end of the day.
Amazing. That's great that it passed diligence. I guess speaking of diligence, how did you guys conduct diligence? What was your process like? How long did it take? Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll learn more.
It went fast. Like we probably, I'm just trying to think of the timelines here. We got the SIM for the business in early June, submitted the LOI like mid-June. LOI was accepted end of June. Actually, no, LOI was accepted in like early to mid-July, and then due diligence. Basically, we had 6 weeks to do the due diligence, and then we closed in September. So it went by pretty quickly here. And so the due diligence process, what we did, we had a template. We looked at operational due diligence, financial due diligence. Not sure how that comes up.
Zoom starts doing it now, I think.
Oh,
So
really? All
yeah,
right.
yeah. We'll have to trigger it again.
Perfect. So yeah, so operational due diligence, legal due diligence, financial due diligence. Yeah, those were the main things we looked at. I guess once we got into the exclusivity due diligence, the first thing we did was start our banking process, just because that's the thing that always prolongs deals. And so for this first deal, we actually had a financial broker. And so somebody who actually went out and shopped out our deal to a bunch of different banks. And, we had 5 or so banks come back with different offers, and that broker did a lot of that negotiation between us and the banks, and which is super helpful for us to have that for the first deal, because we really were fish out of water on that first deal. It was overwhelming. We still had our full-time jobs doing all these things. And so we had a lot on the go. And so having that financial broker to kind of help us deal with the banking side of things was extremely helpful. yeah, it was extremely helpful to make things work at the end of the day.
I can definitely see that. And how and what did you guys, I guess, do on the operational diligence side? And what were some of the things you looked into and that you
Yeah.
discovered maybe during diligence? But also financial on the financial side too. Or any red flags that kind of emerge or everything pretty smooth sailing?
Looking back at it, it was pretty good. Like like the previous owner, she ran a tight ship. She did pretty well and everything, right? On the operational due diligence, I think hindsight's 2020. I think I wish we would what I wish we would have done is I wish we would have kind of sat down and just kind of walked from beginning to end as to kind of like how does a an order go from beginning to end, and kind of sat down and just ask for 3 hours and just ask every single question. Understandably, the owner didn't want us to be in the business while operations was going on to kind of see how things were flowing, which is completely fair. But in hindsight, I wish what we would have done is kind of walk from like, okay, an order comes in, where does it go to next? Okay, where does it go to next? Which system does it go? Which system is required to submit that order? Which people are involved in that whole process? We didn't go as deep into that process, admittedly, for the first business, and then that's something that I would have changed. I think our operational due diligence was, mainly along the lines of looking at the customers, understanding who the point of contacts were for those customers as well, to seeing who had those point of contacts. Was it the owner? How long have those point of contacts been around? What I would do is I go to take a look at the biggest customers, and then I'd see who the point of contact was, and I looked them up on LinkedIn just to make sure that those point of contacts were still at that company as well too. So in one case, we had one of our bigger customers. We saw that point of contact we had was actually no longer working at that company. And so we figured, oh, okay, well, that's our one of our three biggest customers, and our point of contact is no longer there. And so we dug deeper into that, and then we're able to find out that they actually had multiple points of contacts at that company, and that gave us a little bit more comfort to kind of move forward with that. And so things like that, it was kind of what we did on the operational due diligence. But in hindsight, I think we could have gone a little bit deeper, to be honest.
No, that's smart that you went on LinkedIn and actually looked, through those contacts. That makes a lot of sense. I guess with the business, is it one where, is it all B2B? Is it B2C at all? I'm assuming large format, so it's primarily B2B. Are there contracts in place, or is there just like a ton of repeat revenue? What did you guys like about the deal?
Yeah. So the thing we liked about, so our business is a combination of B2B and B2C. So our largest clients are B2B, are other businesses, but the nice thing with ABL Imaging is that we're one of the very few shops in Calgary that can do very good art reproductions. And so a lot of artists will come into our shop with their original piece of art, and we can reproduce that at a very high quality. And so those are kind of our B2C, if you want to look at it that way. But I guess they're artists, and so they're running their own business as well too. But they're kind of sole proprietors, if you want to look at it that way, right? And so the things we liked about our business is that ABL. So to give you a little bit of context about the print space, the print space historically has terrible margins. Their margins are really, really low. The thing that was nice with ABL is that they've positioned themselves as a premium as a kind of a premium player that yeah, as a premium player, as a high quality player. And so we weren't fighting for low prices at the end of the day. The people who came to us knew that we weren't the cheapest. And so that was one thing that we liked about it as well. And another thing we liked about it is that ABL really focuses on kind of if you have kind of like a unique or weird job that's kind of out of the ordinary, ABL is kind of the place to go to for that. And because of that, we're able to get higher margins essentially at the end of the day, right? And so the thing we liked about this business is that it was different from other players in the space, because we were able to have higher EBITDA margins at the end of the day, which was a big plus. Yeah, which was a big plus at the end of the day.
And who are some of the main customers? Who are the B2B customers you guys are serving?
Yeah, our major customers are home builders typically. These home builders are building a ton of houses, and they have these sales centers that they put up. And in these sales centers, there's a ton of print that they need to get done to not just print, but like wall murals or like window decals, all of these different things that they need to get done to make their sales centers look nice and approachable, and all has all the information and their history and their story and all these things. And so home builders are our main client base right now.
That's so interesting. I would not have expected that. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it was I would have never expected that either until we bought the business. Yeah.
Is there a big construction boom, I guess, in where you guys are in Calgary, or what does that look like?
Yeah, there is. I guess to give you, I guess a little bit of a Canadian economy rundown here. A lot of people are familiar with Toronto and Vancouver. Those cities are extremely expensive to live in. And so a lot of people are escaping those cities to find some affordability. Now, there's a lot, there's a few major cities in Canada, and among one of those major cities is Calgary. And the province that Calgary is in is Alberta, and it has a very strong economy. It's a very strong oil and gas province. And so a lot of people are flocking to Calgary right now from Toronto, from Vancouver, looking for more affordability, especially with remote work as well too. And so in a lot of cases, if you're in Vancouver, your first time home may cost you $1 million, or you can come to Calgary and buy your first time home for 500,000 or $600,000, right? And so it's a huge change. So Calgary's population has been growing significantly, and home builders have been building houses like crazy right now in the city, which is a plus for us, honestly. Yeah.
That's great. No, that's super interesting. I was just in Canada a couple of weeks ago and heard the same thing. So
Yeah.
no, it's great to speak to someone who benefits from that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I guess going back to the deal itself, how did you guys structure the deal with the sellers? Like what did the transition, what did you sort of put in terms of the transition? Did you guys have a seller note in place? Yeah, talk to us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So we had a seller note in place, and so our deal, basically the seller note, the combination of our cash and the seller note equated to about 25% down for the bank. So the bank wanted us to have about 25% down in order to loan us the money, right? And so that 25% down came from a combination of our cash and the seller note. And so in terms of out of that 25%, we put in about 17 to 20% of the cash down, and then the rest was a seller note. So it was a smaller seller note, to be honest, but we felt comfortable with it at the end of the day. In terms of the terms of the deal, I guess in terms of the terms, that seller note was typically, it's subordinate to the bank, right? And so the bank is paid out first before the note, and we just have to, before we put any principal payments, pay the interest first, or pay the interest to um, the previous owner of the business, right? And yeah, so that was the very high level of the deal, of how we structured the deal on a financial basis on that front there.
What and how long did you negotiate to sort of keep the previous owner in the business during that transition?
Yeah. Yeah. So the deal we had on paper was three months full time, and then an additional 3 months part time. And then we had her available for consulting services for 18 months. What ended up happening is that, she stayed on for full time for 2.5 months, part time 1.5 months, and then she was off to Cabo. But it worked out well. That wasn't because there was any animosity there. It just worked out well because my partner who went into the business picked up the business pretty quickly. They had a good team in place as well too, that were able to kind of pick things up quickly. And to be honest, one thing we didn't actually think about or consider, but like when you have that owner in place, or that owner around for that period of time, you still have to pay them. And so we figured if we can get that salary off of our expenses as soon as possible, the better it is at the end of the day.
Got it. No, that's super interesting. And when you guys took over, anything unexpected? What did that look like, the transition period?
Yeah, it's funny. I remember day one, me and my partners, went, it was, we just stepped up in front of everybody. I remember somebody saying, he's like, yeah, I overheard somebody whispering, he said, these guys look younger than my kids. And so, so
And
it
how,
was,
wait, and just pause. How old were you?
I was 27 when we acquired the
Okay.
first.
So
Yeah.
probably accurate, I'm guessing.
Yeah, yeah, I don't blame him, right? And so it was yeah, so it was that was definitely intimidating, right? And so but the staff was great. Like this is like the average tenure of like the employees at this company was like 10 years. Like some people have been at this company for 25 years, which is unbelievable. And so they had a really which was a good indication of the culture of the company, right? Admittedly, people are nervous at the whenever something like this happens. And so one of the points we made sure to hit home on was that like, hey, nobody's getting fired. Like
Yeah.
the reason we bought this business is because it was a great business. We're not looking to flip this and sell it and tear it apart and all these things. The reason we're here is because this is a good business and you guys are the reason it's a good business. And so just establishing a level of comfort from day one. But words at the end of the day are cheap, right? And so we have to show that in action. And so, Cody, my business partner, did a good job at, you know, going into the business and actually kind of doing a lot of the grunt work, going on site with these people, going on site on a lot of these installs and building those relationships and building an environment where people were just comfortable to go up and talk to them about any issues that they had as well too. And so overall, the transition went quite nicely. In terms of some things, our plan was always like do no harm. This is a good business, and so it's been done well for a long period of time, and so it should theoretically do well for the next period of time. And so our plan was always like, don't make any serious changes for the first year of the business, unless there's some things that are like glaringly obvious. So for example, like the accounting system that was used in the business was this archaic system and there's only one operator in like Canada who knew how to actually like service this system, and that guy was 80 years old. And so we're just like, okay, we got to get off of this accounting system, right? And so we just switched to QuickBooks within like the first like few months of the business. But other than that, that was the first real like process change that we made. Now we've obviously made some more changes over time, but the first year we just kind of left it as is, just because we don't understand. We weren't we didn't want to tell ourselves that we understood this business perfectly and we could come in and change everything from day one, because we just don't know the business as much as we think of how smart we are. We just don't know the business, right?
No, that's really funny about the QuickBooks accounting system, or the accounting system they had. And no, it makes sense, right? What you're saying, and seems like you guys really took the time to learn the business, and ultimately, you bought the business because you thought it was a good business. So it wasn't, I guess, a turnaround or anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm curious, was the goal, did you guys see some like obvious growth opportunities? Were you looking to buy for just the existing cash flow, or did you really see an opportunity to grow the business and to make some changes eventually?
Yeah. So our because we've always wanted to build a portfolio of small businesses. And so the way we looked at our business is that the worst case scenario, if this business doesn't grow, are we still happy with it? And we were happy with that with that as well, right? And so we weren't looking to make a 20x growth and stuff like that. We're just looking to grow these businesses 10 5 10 15% year over year, right? And so that's kind of always been the plan. And we figured if we can accumulate many of these businesses over time, these are nice cash flow. We're not looking to flip these businesses. We want to hold on to these businesses as long as we can and kind of go off of that cash flow. And so that's kind of the thought process we kind of went about it.
And has that materialized with the first business? Like, have you been able to grow it since acquiring it? What does that look like?
Yeah, we really have. So year one, we were able to grow EBITDA by like 30%.
Wow.
And people often ask us like, how'd you do that? And it's not like we did anything crazy or out of the ordinary. Literally what it was is we implemented QuickBooks, and now we had more visibility into the margins of some of these jobs that we had, right? So simple things like that as well too. And so yeah, so we've definitely been able to grow the business, and oftentimes when people ask me how is the business going, my response is typically it's doing what we thought it would do. It's not, it's not a $50 million business now, but it's doing what we thought it would do, and that's exactly what we wanted to do at the end of the day. So that's perfect.
No, I mean, growing EBITDA by 30% first year is incredible. So congrats on that and success.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And when you say, you have more visibility in the margins, I mean, it's crazy how seemingly simple it is. Did you guys go back to some of these projects and just kind of, raise prices basically when you saw that some of them were lower than maybe expected? Or, how did that
Yeah.
actually materialize into the growth in EBITDA margins?
I think it's more along the lines of just kind of we didn't necessarily go back, but just kind of moving forward. We just
Yeah,
know the baseline of what we need to charge. And so when our sales reps are going out, we say like, hey, here's the baseline. We cannot go below this level. And so we're now no long now we have a little now we know that when we go into a job, we know we're as low as we can go. And we just won't bother with opportunities that go below that threshold because we're just losing money on those deals, right? And so it frees us up. It allows us to focus on the things that allow us to grow at the end of the day. And so and that's a great thing about these small business these small old businesses is that you can make meaningful, significant changes with simple things. It doesn't take rocket science. It doesn't take this innovative, brand new marketing campaign that's never been thought of before. Just very simple change. And when you're thinking of it in the eye of an investor, the ROI you can get with very simple things, it's unbeatable. There's nowhere else you can get that kind of ROI anywhere in the market, I think.
100%. No, I completely agreed there. I'm curious, was the goal of, obviously creating a whole holding company where you have a lot of small businesses that are all cash flowing. That's great. Was the plan that you would eventually hire a general manager to run this instead of your partner? What was sort of the plan there?
Yeah, that was exactly it. The plan is, each of us would quit our day jobs as we buy a new business, and we'd run that business for, 2 to 3 years, maybe a little longer, and then hire in a general manager to run to run the business. And we figured we like the idea of being in the business first, because if we hire a general manager right off the bat, it becomes hard for us to
Learn the actual business.
exactly, and make strategic decisions, right? And honestly, if you make a bad hire, that hire can really screw you over at the end of the day, just because you don't know the business, right? And so we figured before we hire GM, we need to know this business inside out, before we feel comfortable passing that off to somebody.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense, especially since that transition period is really the highest risk period. It's the only time you have access to the previous owner and all their knowledge and experience too. So that makes sense.
Exactly, for sure. Yeah.
Um, well, look, super exciting. I guess I'm curious, in this sort of second deal that you guys are looking for, what's different this time around? What are you doing differently this time around, whether it's your search criteria or just how you're approaching the process?
Yeah, there's a lot of different things we're kind of thinking differently. I kind of think of this first deal as kind of like the MVP, the minimum viable product, where we told a bunch of people this is what we're gonna do. We did it, and then we went back to those people and said, "Hey, we did it." And now a lot of these people are like, "That's interesting. Let us know next time you buy another business." And so now we're kind of in a situation where we have some interest from other parties who's like, "Hey, we'd love to participate in the next deal." And so now we're looking for a bigger deal, right? Just because with some investors, and so we're looking for a bigger deal. So that's one avenue we're considering. Another avenue we're considering as well too is we're looking for things that are synergetic with our existing business as well. Um, when you have an existing business, it's kind of neat to think about buying a business, just because there's a lot of situations where you can make 1 + 1 = 3 with simple things, bringing operations under the same roof and then saving, $100,000 off of rent every year, right? Stuff like that can really go a long ways. And so those are kind of the two avenues we're looking at. We're either looking at a bigger business with investors, or probably finding something that's a little bit more synergetic with the existing business that we have. And so yeah, those are kind of the two ways we're going about right now.
No, that's super smart. What would be an example of a business that would be, synergistic with the print shop? Is it another print shop, or is it more like, what would be another example of something that you guys would be interested in?
Yeah. So one would be like another print shop that offers a service that we don't have. So that would be one. Another one would be, just kind of moving along the supply chain. So a marketing agency, for example, acquiring a marketing agency that does print work, something like that would be would be pretty, yeah, basically going up and down the supply chain. So marketing agency, or even buying one of our suppliers, something like that.
Wow, very smart.
Mhm.
Yeah, being vertically integrated would be huge for the business. So that makes a
Exactly.
lot of sense.
Yeah.
Um, no, well, Mark, very, very exciting. I guess last question for you, any final words of wisdom, especially for those first-time business buyers out there who are going to be listening to this?
Yeah, I would just say read and listen to as much as you can, because it seems like the wild, wild west when you first start thinking about buying a business. And so listening to, your podcast, reading good books, all of these different things, it really allows you to take these things into bite sizes instead of trying to boil the ocean at the end of the day. And so that's one thing. And then I'd also say talk to people who have done it before. I find that this space is something that is growing quickly, and people love talking about it who have done it. And so reach out to people, talk to them as well too. And then don't count yourself out, honestly. Like, this isn't something that you can only do if you have a Harvard MBA or a Wharton MBA or something like that. Um, Anybody can, yeah, honestly, you don't need a Harvard MBA to get this done. You can do it without all that stuff, basically.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I guess we're both proof that, you definitely don't need a Harvard MBA. So, I guess, okay, I lied. One last question. If people want to reach out, where can they find you?
Yeah, for sure. So LinkedIn, Marc Nzojibwami, Mark MARC, last name Nzojibwami. I am pretty sure I'm the only Marc Nzojibwami on LinkedIn. You can also
That's funny.
you can also email me at marc, @auxano.ca. But yeah, I'd say those are the two best ways to kind of reach out to me. And I do my best to kind of get back to people as quickly as I can. So love to connect with as many people as I can.
Well, thank you for being so generous with your time, both today and hopefully with those that are reaching out. So, Mark, really, really appreciate your time today. I certainly learned a lot. I know other people are going to feel the same way. Really enjoyed chatting, and yeah, let's please stay in touch. I'm excited to see what your next acquisition is going to be.
Yeah, I'll keep you posted. And thanks so much for having me, Helen. I love the work you're doing. Your newsletter is great, the way you think about deals and everything. And so if anybody's thinking about buying a business, subscribe to that newsletter. And this is not, I promise that Helen did not ask me to say this at all. This is me coming out of my own heart here. But yeah, you're doing some great work in this space. So thank you.
Really appreciate it, Mark. Thank you again.